Hey there. I'm so glad you could join me. Find a comfortable place and let the sounds of your world begin to fade away. Tonight, we're going to travel back in time, not just to another year, but to another world, nestled within a city you might think you know. We're going to the Gilded Age of New York City, a time of staggering wealth and breathtaking innovation. Around the year 1895, imagine yourself looking out from a high window. Below, the first electric lights are beginning to glitter along Fifth Avenue, casting a golden glow on the magnificent mansions of industrialists and financiers. Carriages drawn by perfect black horses glide silently over the pavement. It's a world of silk, diamonds, and endless possibility. But this glittering facade was a fragile one. For every family living in a 50-room palace, thousands were crammed into squalid tenements just a few miles away, where, according to journalists of the time like Jacob Riis, 1 in 10 infants would not live to see their first birthday. It was a city of stark contrasts, of dazzling light and the deepest shadow. And within this world of opulence, a silent, beautiful, and deadly threat was about to bloom. A mystery that would require a new kind of detective, one who looked for clues that no one else could see. I'd be so happy to hear where you're tuning in from this evening. Feel free to leave a comment with your city and what time it is there. It's a lovely thought, knowing we're all sharing this story from different corners of the world. Now let the lights down low, get settled, and let's travel back together to uncover the case of the deadly bloom. On a crisp October morning, the grand marble foyer of the Vliet mansion on Fifth Avenue was a scene of hushed chaos. Mrs. Eleanor Vliet, a doyenne of New York society, had been discovered by her maid, not in her bed, but artfully reclined on a chaise lounge in her private conservatory. She was dressed in an elegant evening gown, a book of poetry resting open in her lap. To the uniformed patrolman who first arrived, it seemed the 60-year-old woman had simply been overcome by a weak heart while admiring her prized orchids. But the family physician was unnerved by the serene, almost theatrical placement of the body. He insisted on calling in the detectives. Among them was Detective Thomas Corbin, a man whose presence was quietly tolerated but rarely welcomed at such scenes. While his colleagues saw a tragedy of high society, Corbin's eyes were drawn to the details. He noted the faint, sweet scent in the air, a fragrance that was floral, yet somehow unfamiliar. Then he saw it. Resting gently on the book in the victim's lap was a single, perfect flower. A deep crimson bloom with velvety petals he had never seen before. It was not one of the orchids from the conservatory. It was a deliberate placement, a silent statement. Back at the Mulberry Street Police Headquarters, a place of loud noises, cigar smoke, and rough justice, Corbin's theories were met with skepticism. His captain, a veteran of the force named O'Malley who trusted his gut more than evidence, declared Mrs. Vliet's death to be from natural causes. "Rich folks have weak hearts, Corbin," he grumbled, dismissing the flower as a meaningless trifle. "Close the case. We have real criminals to catch." This was the reality of policing in an era before standardized forensic procedures. In 1895 New York, corruption was rampant, and science in police work was often viewed as a fool's errand. But Corbin was part of a new emerging school of thought. He believed that facts could be found in the smallest of traces. Ignoring his captain's dismissal, he carefully preserved the crimson flower in a specimen box. Instead of filing a final report, He took a carriage to the newly established New York Botanical Garden in the Bronx, a sanctuary of science and nature far from the city's grime. He sought the expertise of Dr. Althea Jacobs, one of the country's few female botanists, hoping she could shed some light on the beautiful object that he was certain was the key to the entire mystery. Before Dr. Jacobs could provide any answers, the killer struck again. This time the victim was Mr. Silas Croft, a wealthy industrialist known for his ruthless business practices and, paradoxically, his generous public donations. He was found in the library of his Madison Avenue mansion, seated in his favorite leather armchair by a cold fireplace. He held a financial ledger on his lap, a pair of reading glasses perched on his nose. To all appearances, his heart had simply given out while reviewing his accounts. The scene was eerily similar to the first, a peaceful, almost staged death in an opulent setting. The patrolmen on site were about to report it as such when Detective Corbin arrived. He had heard the address on the police telegraph and had come immediately, his gut tightening with a sense of dread. His fears were confirmed when he entered the silent, book-lined room. On the polished table beside Croft's chair, placed next to a silver letter opener, was a single, exquisite flower. This one was different, a delicate, bell-shaped bloom of the purest white. The press, learning of the second strange death and the presence of a mysterious flower, created a name for the killer that captured the city's imagination: the florist. With 2 victims from the city's elite, the pressure on the NYPD was immense. Captain O'Malley, now forced to take the case seriously, reluctantly gave Corbin the lead. Corbin knew the killer was moving within the circles of the wealthy, a world to which he had no access. To understand his victims and hunt their killer, he had to enter their environment. He secured an invitation to the annual St. Nicholas Charity Ball, one of the most exclusive events of the season, held at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel. Dressed in an ill-fitting, rented tuxedo, Corbin felt like an imposter. He moved through the glittering ballroom, a sea of diamond tiaras, silk gowns, and hushed, powerful conversations. He was not there to dance or drink champagne. He was there to observe. He watched the subtle interactions, listened to the whispered gossip, and tried to understand the intricate web of rivalries, alliances, and debts that connected everyone in the room. He felt the cold, polite scrutiny of the city's 400, the core group of high society. Here, a person's worth was measured by their bloodline and bank account, and Corbin's presence was a clear and unwelcome intrusion. Corbin's visit to the world of the elite yielded no immediate suspects, but his scientific approach was about to bear fruit. He received an urgent message from Dr. Althea Jacobs at the Botanical Garden. When he arrived, she led him into her laboratory, a room filled with microscopes, beakers, and the earthy smell of plants. Dr. Jacobs, a woman of sharp intellect and quiet passion, had identified both flowers. The first, the crimson bloom, was a Brugmansia sanguinea, or red angel's trumpet. The second, the white one, was Convallaria majalis, a particularly potent strain of lily of the valley. Both were beautiful, rare, and not native to the United States. They could only be grown in highly specialized hothouses. Then she delivered the crucial information. "They are not just flowers, Detective," she explained, her voice low. "Every part of them contains powerful alkaloids. In a concentrated extract, they would be a formidable poison, fast-acting, incredibly difficult to trace, and mimicking the symptoms of sudden cardiac arrest." Corbin finally had it, the murder weapon. It was not a gun or a knife, but something far more sophisticated and insidious. The killer was not just a murderer, but a highly skilled botanist and chemist. Armed with the knowledge of the poison and the rarity of the plants, Corbin's investigation took on a new focus. He was no longer just looking for a person with a motive, he was looking for a person with a unique and specific set of skills. He returned to the case files of his two victims, Mrs. Vliet and Mr. Croft, and began to scrutinize their financial and professional lives, searching for a hidden connection. He spent days poring over deeds, business ledgers, and charity board meeting minutes in the city archives. The work was painstaking, the paper trails dense and intentionally confusing. But after a long search, he found the link. A year ago, both victims had sat on the acquisitions board of a major city charity. In a move to expand their portfolio, the board had aggressively foreclosed on several small, struggling businesses. Among them was a name that caught Corbin's eye: Dubois Fleuriste, a renowned boutique floral shop known for importing and cultivating exotic plants. The shop, owned by a French immigrant family, had been a city institution for 2 decades before it was crushed by the charity's ruthless expansion. The motive was no longer abstract. It had a name and an address. It was the story of a family business, a lifetime of work, destroyed by the very people who were now the victims. The trail led Corbin to a modest tenement building in the Lower East Side, a world away from the mansions of his victims. He found Julien Dubois, the former owner of the floral boutique, living in a small, cramped apartment. The man was a shadow of his former self, broken by the loss of his life's work. He was old, his hands shook, and his eyes were clouded with despair. Corbin questioned him gently, but it quickly became clear that this man lacked the physical ability and the cold precision to be the florist. Moreover, he had a verifiable alibi for the times of both murders. He was working a menial job as a cleaner. The interview left Corbin feeling disheartened, the promising lead seemingly dissolving into a dead end. As he was leaving the bleak apartment, his eyes fell upon a small, framed photograph on the mantelpiece. It showed Mr. Dubois in happier times, standing proudly in front of his magnificent shop. Beside him stood a handsome, serious-looking young man. "My son, Lucien," the old man whispered, his voice thick with a mixture of pride and sorrow. "He was the real artist. He had a gift with the plants, a true genius. He left the city after we lost everything. I don't know where he went." The trail was not cold after all. It simply led to a new name. The face of Lucien Dubois in the photograph haunted Corbin. He spent the next 48 hours searching for any trace of the young man. He checked city departure records, spoke to former neighbors, and visited shipping line offices, but Lucien seemed to have vanished. Frustrated, Corbin decided to re-examine the case from a different angle: the plants themselves. He went back to Dr. Jacobs with a new question. Where would one acquire these specific plants, or their seeds? The botanist explained that while some could be cultivated, the rarest strains often came from very specific parts of the world, particularly South America and parts of Asia. On a hunch, Corbin began meticulously checking the passenger manifests of ships arriving in New York from those regions in the months leading up to the first murder. It was a monumental task. Late one night, after hours of scanning lists of names, he found him. Lucien Dubois had not left the country. He had returned to it. He had arrived 1 year ago on a steamship from Brazil, listed on the manifest not as a passenger, but as a botanical specialist for a scientific expedition. He had come back to New York with the knowledge, the motive, and, Corbin suspected, the very seeds he needed to cultivate his revenge.
Following the trail from the shipping records, Corbin discovered that Lucien Dubois had used a false name to lease a small, derelict property with a large glass house in a remote corner of Brooklyn. Corbin went there, not with a squad of officers, but with just one trusted sergeant. He wanted no noise, no chance for his quarry to escape. The greenhouse was steamy and filled with an astonishing array of exotic and beautiful plants. And there, tending to a collection of impossibly vibrant flowers, was Lucien Dubois. He was no longer the boy in the photograph, but a man with haunted eyes and soil-stained hands. He showed no surprise at their arrival, merely a weary acceptance. He didn't deny anything. In a quiet, calm voice, he explained his actions. He had approached his victims under the guise of offering them a rare new hybrid for their collections. He shared tea with them, laced with his odorless, tasteless poison, and then placed one of his beautiful blooms with them as his signature. "They took the most beautiful thing in my life," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "So I used beauty to take theirs." Corbin arrested him there, amongst the silent, living weapons he had so carefully cultivated. The arrest of the florist was as quiet and strange as his crimes. The capture of the florist was a sensation, a dark fairy tale of high society and botanical revenge that captivated the city. For Detective Corbin, however, the resolution was a quiet, somber affair. His detailed report, which cited botanical analysis, toxicology, and meticulous document tracing, became a foundational text for the new forensic investigation unit at the NYPD, championed by then Police Commissioner Theodore Roosevelt. Corbin's methods, once ridiculed, were now being hailed as the future of police work. One evening, weeks later, Corbin stood looking out his window at the ever-moving city. He thought of the flowers, so beautiful and yet so deadly. A perfect metaphor for the city itself. A place of dazzling beauty that could hide the most profound dangers. He thought of Lucien Dubois, a brilliant mind twisted by grief and a desire for a justice he could never truly have. There was no triumph in the case's conclusion, only a deep sense of tragedy for all involved. The city would continue its relentless pace. The rich would continue their galas, and the poor would continue their struggle. But for a time, a quiet detective had peeled back the glittering facade and shown the dark, complex heart that beat beneath it all. Justice, he mused, was rarely a simple thing. And so, our journey into the past comes to a gentle close. The echoes of history have faded, the mystery is solved, and a quiet stillness has settled over that long-ago world. Just as peace has returned to those distant streets, let it now settle over you, wrapping around you like the softest, warmest blanket. Feel the weight of the day begin to lift from your shoulders, a heavy cloak you no longer need to wear. Let go of all the thoughts, the questions, and the worries that have followed you here. They have no place in this quiet moment. Listen only to the soft, steady rhythm of your own breathing. A gentle inhale and a long, slow exhale. Each breath is a wave, carrying you further away from the shores of wakefulness and deeper into the calm, quiet ocean of sleep. Your mind grows still, your body grows heavy,
and a feeling of profound peace washes over you. There is nothing left for you to do, nothing to figure out. Your only task now is to drift on these gentle currents, letting them carry you safely into the harbor of your dreams. Sleep well, and good night.